software development. I'm going to reintroduce him. Our speaker today is Brian Bedard. Brian and I go back a few years since we met each other in computer science at the University of Windsor. And I can't seem to remember exactly which year it was. Brian is a director in software development at Marrow. He's had an outstanding career. This is a sister company of Rocket Mortgage in Detroit. He lives in Windsor with his wife, Joanne, and their children, Brian and Grace. In 2005, Brian and Joanne founded the Katelyn Bedard Bone Marrow Association in memory of their daughter, Katelyn, after losing her to leukemia at the age of 3 when she was unable to find a matching bone marrow donor. To date, the association has raised more than $1 million in support of bone marrow transplant patients and has recruited more than 7,000 people to join the World Bone Marrow Registry. Brian's talk is entitled, "The Katelyn Bedard Bone Marrow Association, Our Passion, Our Fight."
Thank you, Ray. Good morning, everybody. So happy to be here this morning and really appreciate Mariette and Ray reaching out to give me the opportunity to speak. And my wife, Joanne, has joined me here this morning. So as Ray mentioned, it's been some time since him and I met. It's been long enough ago that it was before my son, also named Brian, was born. And he's now in second-year university studying computer science as well. So it's like history repeating itself here. So it was that long ago, probably almost 25 years ago that we met. And I was very pleased when Lori came into Ray's life and got to meet her and enjoy our friendship with her as well. And we're quite saddened when we lost Lori last year, and we were happy to come here to the church and remember Lori, and had a chance to meet Mariette at the reception afterwards. My daughter Grace sat with me, and we had a great conversation with her. So it was a great day of remembering and a wonderful life. And I was remembering this morning too, a little bit of a funny story of Ray and Lori invited us to go for breakfast one morning, and the whole family went, Joanne, myself, my son Brian, and daughter Grace. And Ray had said, let's meet at Deb's Diner, he said. So perfect. So in my mind, there's Deb's Diner on Ottawa Street in Windsor. So we head down there, and we're waiting for Ray and Lori to arrive. And after about 20 or 30 minutes beyond the time we were supposed to meet, they're still not there. And then all of a sudden we hear the phone ring in the restaurant, and the owner answers the phone, and she calls her, "Are you Brian?" I'm like, "Yeah, there's Ray on the phone. He's at Deb's place." And they're wondering if maybe you're here, and we've got our wires cut. We're here. So then Ray and Lori came down and met us at the correct Deb's. So we had didn't know there was 2 Deb's in Windsor. So anyhow, we had a great morning. I just remember profoundly Lori spending time coloring with my daughter Grace, and she just really asked a lot of questions and listened and really cared and just wanted to know. Even though Grace was probably 7 years old at the time, she was important. And it's really sad to me that Ray and Lori were always such great supporters of the charity I'm going to tell you about this morning and our cause. And they would come to our fundraisers, and Lori volunteered at our events, helping with swabbing in that. And it's never would have thought in a million years they'd be affected by the same cause. And then I was so surprised when I was speaking with Mariette she told me about her son or nephew, Tomas, and he had a bone marrow transplant. He was sick right around the same time as my daughter. It was about a year difference between the two. And we probably crossed paths in the hospital back then. So small world. So I'd like to tell you a little bit about my daughter, Katelyn. Katelyn, wonderful little child, so bright, and she, at the age of 2, it was right before Christmas, I remember. It was like December 4th or 5th, around that time frame. And I picked her up at daycare, brought her home. And when we were kind of putting her pajamas on that evening, looked at her, and her face, one side of her face had fallen. It was almost like she'd had a stroke or something like that. So like, oh, what's this? And we were obviously quite concerned. So we brought her to Hotel du Hospital at the time. I believe it's been renamed now, to the emergency there. And they, admitted her. They said, well, this is kind of normal. They said it's something called Bell's palsy. If you remember Jacques Chrétien, the former prime minister, he had that sort of like fallen side to his face. It was from having had Bell's palsy. It's sort of like a paralysis you'll get from some pressure on a nerve in your ear canal. And that's what had happened to her. But the unfortunate part, the reason she had that pressure was because she had leukemia in her spinal fluid, and it was pushing on this nerve. And that's what caused us to find out that she had this grave illness. So they did this blood work and then came back, and we were just floored when they told us that it's leukemia, and you're going to have to go immediately to London. There's no treatment in Windsor for that. So we had to depart right from the hospital there with her and drove up to London. She was admitted there and under the care of an oncologist. And she was there for almost 9 months. We were home a little bit during that time frame, but for the most part, we just lived in London during that horror ordeal. And she actually took very well to the treatment. We kind of made a life there. We moved in, everything, made the best of things, as they say, and had some special memories there. The treatment went really well. She had chemotherapy, and we came home. And unfortunately, within a month or so of her being home, we were hopeful that she had beaten it and everything would be fine. She had her first checkup, her first blood test, and it was leukemia was back already. So she had what they call a relapse. So at that point, the only thing that would save her then was something called a bone marrow transplant, or they may call it a stem cell transplant. So we had to turn to this world registry, people that have been tested and said they would be willing to donate to somebody that they're a match for. It's a little bit different than donating blood. With blood, lots of people match you, and you can get blood from a lot of different people. But with bone marrow, it's you really only have a good chance of matching your siblings. And then if you don't match one of your siblings, then you have to find a stranger in the world. It's like a 1 in a million chance then type thing of finding that match. So it's much harder to find your match. And unfortunately, we never did find the match for Katie. So they had reassured us that, oh, she's got this French-Canadian heritage. There's lots of people in the registry that we'll find somebody, but unfortunately, we never did. So that was devastating for us, and a real tragedy. So we'll always remember her, just such a beautiful young girl. And we have videos we watch every year around her birthday or around the anniversary of when we lost her, like your friend who had lost their daughter recently. And you remember more than on an annual basis, but you make a point to remember. And so we felt we really wanted to spare this tragedy from others, do whatever we could. So shortly after we lost her, we kind of put a call out to our friends and family and said, hey, we have this idea to form this group to kind of raise awareness about this cause, get more people onto this registry, try and find matches for more people so that others can be spared the same. And so we formed what we call the Katelyn Bedard Bone Marrow Association in her memory. And we have 3 main areas of focus. We focus first and foremost on awareness, as I mentioned. So we do this recruiting and educate people on what's involved in this process of donating. And we run these, what are called cheek swab clinics out in the community, where people come out, they can apply, do a swab of their cheek to be added to this list. And it's a quick process. It doesn't cost them anything or anything like that. And it's actually, we've done so well with that in 2010, 2 special things happened. We traveled to Queen's Park in Toronto, where the legislature is. And that day we signed an agreement with Canadian Blood Services, where they're official partner in this Windsor and Essex region. We do all their recruitment drives, so they don't run their swab drives. We do them for them. And also that day, if anybody remembers Bruce Crozier, who was an MP in Essex here or MPP, sorry, in Essex for many years, he had introduced a bill to make the month of November, the Katelyn Bedard Bone Marrow Awareness Month. So we recognize that every November since 2010. So really nice that Bruce did that. And unfortunately, Bruce has gone now as well. But he was a wonderful man, a wonderful supporter of us as well. So that's the first part, is the awareness piece. The other thing that's really important to us is we raise funds that we give directly to patients and their families that are going through this. So if you were to need a bone marrow transplant, you're going to be off work possibly for several years. Possibly your spouse or your partner would also have to take significant time off work. Certainly, like as we did, our daughter was sick for a long time and I couldn't really work a whole lot during that time frame. My wife didn't work at all. So you have all this loss of income and you have all these added expenses because you're typically living on the road, living maybe in a hotel, extra meal costs, parking, all that. So we give them direct funds they can just use for any of those expenses. So, and as Ray mentioned in intro, we've been blessed by generosity of this community and been able to raise over $1 million since we lost Katelyn that we give directly to these families. And then we also have put significant investment into research because research is the key to making all this go away and find better outcomes for these patients. So we have projects here in Windsor at the University of Windsor and at the University of Montreal that we're supporting. And there's a couple different things. One is around trying to prevent what they call dangerous donors. So sometimes when you get this transplant, you're going to get a complication called graft versus host disease, where you're receiving this marrow from somebody else and your body sort of detects that as foreign and it starts to attack your organs, and you can actually like beat your disease, like you beat the leukemia, for example, but then this graft versus host disease ends up taking you in the end. So you kind of replace one disease with another. So this research is helping to, if you have 5 potential donors, which one has the best chance of not giving you that complication and things like that. So that's one example. There's others that we've been supporting. So really proud of that research work as well. The other thing that's really heartwarming is that through these recruitment drives we do, and Ray mentioned we've recruited over 7,000 people. We've had several matches now. So people that came out, decided to join because they started, and they've now matched. They've donated. They've in some cases met that person they donated to. So that's really heartwarming to see that we've given hope to somebody and given life to somebody thanks to these efforts. So, and really pleased that a couple of weeks ago, Joanne was able to attend. We got a call from Brian Massey's office in Windsor. He's the MP for our area. And we were awarded it's called the Queen's Jubilee Pin for the work we've done doing this. So we were one of several organizations and individuals recognized for that. So that was a really touching moment to receive that recognition. So I brought a video that I think we could play now, and it's actually Joanne speaking in the video, and it's going to just tell you a little bit more about the impact that we have, and then show some photos of the work that we've done. I think you'll enjoy this. So.
Hello, my name is Joanne Bedard, and not only am I one of the founding members of the Katelyn Bedard Bone Marrow Association, I'm also Katie's mom. My husband Brian and I were inspired to start the Katelyn Bedard Bone Marrow Association, a registered Canadian charity, in July of 2005 after losing our 3-year-old daughter Katelyn to acute myeloid leukemia. There were no matches for Katie in the worldwide bone marrow registry, and she could not receive the life-saving stem cell transplant she so desperately needed. Our organization has 3 main objectives: to raise awareness about the desperate need for bone marrow donors and encourage people to join the bone marrow registry, to provide financial support to bone marrow transplant patients undergoing a transplant through our family support program, and to sponsor bone marrow related research in hopes of finding better outcomes for patients faced with bone marrow transplants. Going through a stem cell transplant presents many challenges. There is the obvious toll it takes physically on your body, but there is also the emotional impact and the financial burden it can cause. Not only is the person going through the transplant not able to work, but most often a caregiver must also take a substantial amount of time off of work. Our transplant family support program aims to relieve some of that burden by offering patients some money to put towards whatever expenses they are faced with as they undergo their transplant and recovery. We receive many thank you letters from our recipients, such as this one. Dear Katelyn Bedard Bone Marrow Association, on behalf of my family, I want to thank you for your generous support following my diagnosis of myelofibrosis. We were very fortunate that a donor match was found on the worldwide registry, and I underwent a bone marrow transplant in Hamilton on September 7th, 2021. I had to stay in Hamilton at the hospital and a hotel from August 26th to December 16th, when I was able to return home to continue my treatment at the cancer center here. The funds you provided helped overcome some of our travel expenses and hotel costs. We are truly grateful for your support during this difficult time for our family. On February 7th, it will be 5 months since my transplant. I am doing well, but still have a long way to go before reaching a full recovery. We will let you know when I reach that milestone. We can't wait to celebrate that day. We are truly sorry that there wasn't a match for your Katie. You are right, she should not have died. What you are doing is an amazing tribute to Katie in working so hard to change that and help the registry grow to millions of potential donors. Thank you so much.
Yeah, a lot of good memories there. Despite the heartache, seeing that and seeing all the memories we've had since, and great people helping out in that. So it means a lot. There was actually, would have had to think towards the end, there was a picture of sort of a younger man in it looked like a hospital bed. And right after that, there was sort of this sort of handsome guy standing there. They're brothers. And both of them are two of the ones they both matched after coming to our events, and they both went on to donate, which is incredible. So, and their uncle, Ken, was one of our founding directors, and Ken needed a bone marrow transplant. And sadly, Ken did die from that complication I talked about, the graft versus host. And it's amazing to me that then his two nephews, went on and matched and donated. It's Ken's definitely having an influence there up in heaven, in my mind, for sure. So anyways, thank you so much for the time here. I just wanted to mention one thing. To join the registry, it's ages 17 to 35, and I have a hunch that, like me, probably a few of you are above that 35 year age limit. But if not, I have information here you're welcome to take. I'll leave the brochures. There's information about the organization in general. And if you have someone in your family or your life that is in that age range, 17 to 35, that could join, that'd be wonderful. Or if they could give blood, that helps a lot as well. These patients need sometimes hundreds of blood transfusions as part of their treatment. So giving blood is also a really helpful and impactful thing. So I'm happy to take any questions if there were questions at all, or I'm not sure what's appropriate, but be happy to. But thank you again.
I think we have time for a few questions. If anyone has questions for Brian. Yeah, please.